expanding our horizons to trail running today on the Do Hard Things Today podcast. Hal Morris, we got some repeat visitors here today.
I love repeat visitors.
We have got the Siglers, and they were here before to talk about obstacle course racing, and also I think you were on one about recovering from injuries as well, doing that too. But we've got Wayne and Lora Sigler here with us today, and we're going to cover seems to be an emerging interest in our local running community, and probably around the country as a lot of the road races and things have been canceled. We're going to talk about trail running today. Hal, have you ever done any trail running?
I did my first trail running last Saturday.
Saturday.
The first half mile of the triathlon was through the woods.
Oh, how'd that go?
It was different. They had painted all the routes white with white spray paint, and I think the mistake I made though was when I went into the woods, they handed me a bottle of water, and I was trying to run through the woods with this bottle of water.
Yeah.
And I said, I need to throw this thing down, but I didn't want to litter.
Yeah.
So I just held on to it and kept on going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so that was my first trail running.
Well, we wanted to break through some of the myths and maybe clarify some things as to what I know. A lot of people think that trail running is, hey, I can run on the road. I can go out and I can run 5-10 miles on the road. I'll just go on the trail and start running, and I'll be fine. And I don't think that is the case. I think that there are. I know that Jill said that somebody fell 3 times last week when they were trying to run in the trails. It can happen. You can injure yourself. It is a different animal than just going out and running on the road. And Laura and Wayne have a lot of experience in this. They're actually doing seminars right now for people to come and kind of learn what it is that you've got to do. So we appreciate you guys coming back to the podcast and sharing your knowledge on this subject. So let's talk about trail running. Why do you think there is an emerging, and I've already got your answer to this, but our podcast listeners don't. Why are people interested in trail running now?
I think the big thing is, and you touched on it, a lot of road races are canceled and trail races are still being able to go on because they're generally smaller. You can space out a little more. It's just kind of a healthier environment in the woods. So I think people are looking to race. They're looking to be out in groups, and trail races right now give them that opportunity. Yep. Some of the big ones aren't going on, but a lot of the local smaller ones are still going on. So I think that's the big thing. And then there seems to be any time the country goes through a stressful situation after 9/11, trail running and hiking saw a bump. Uh-huh. After the financial crisis, trail running and hiking saw a bump. I think it's this getting back out to nature type thing that attracts people. They want to be, they're in the city, they're in their homes, and that, that's where they were when the stressful situation occurred. So let's go somewhere different.
Yeah.
So I have noticed that over the years when the country faces something, people go to the woods. Yeah. so that's probably part of it as well.
That's interesting. I
didn't know that.
I never thought about that, but it does make sense that people would almost as an escape from the reality of all the junk we're going through right now. So the biggest part of our audience are obviously going to be road runners. They're going to be half marathoners, 5K, or whatever that may be. So let's talk about the difference, because some people are probably listening now and thinking, hey, it really can't be a difference. Let's talk about what are some of the big differences between trail running and road running.
Softer, slower, and dirtier. Those are the big main things. You are not going to run as fast on trails as you do on the road. And I'll put a caveat to that. It depends on the trail. There is such a difference in trail technicality. Locally, the Cottonwood Trail you're probably going to run close to your road speed on the Cottonwood Trail. It's basically a flat dirt path. It's nice and groomed. It's heavily used. People run out there, you're going to run close to your road speed. You get to Croft. There's a lot more rocks, roots, elevation. It just slows you down. So, you can't. People when you're comparing road runners, you can ask people, "What's your 5K time? What's your marathon time?" Yeah. It doesn't quite work with trail races because one trail 50K might have 1,000 feet of climbing, another one might have 10,000 feet of climbing. So, those are completely different animals. Yeah. So,
are they graded almost like a Class 5 rapids, Class 3 almost? Are there grades to these things?
There are, especially in the ultra world. There are people who will grade them. Like Ultra Running Magazine lists all the races that are out there, and they will grade the elevation and they'll grade the terrain. So 1-1 is basically a flat path. 5-5 is your gnarly hard rock 100 out in the Colorados type thing. So there are people that do grade them. I'm not sure there's some universal thing, but yeah, they are graded.
So softer surfaces. You mentioned a lot of us here participated in a race yesterday, road race, and you mentioned, man, my knees just screaming at me. I hate road running. But what the physical part of it, physiologically, is it and obviously you don't want to be falling down 3 times. You got to get used to doing it. But physiologically, is it better on your body? It's got to be, I would think. Well,
so I'll go ahead and take that one, having 2 knee surgeries and I truly dislike running, but I love trail running. And the difference for me is the road just kills my knees, which then translates into your hips and your ankles. And when you're on the trails, regardless of what type of trail it is, you have softer surfaces. You have leaves, you've got sand, you have mud, you have dirt, things that you're going to sink into that are going to help embrace that impact that you have. And so I would much rather do an 8K on a trail because it will help save my knees and then your hips and then your ankles and the rest of your body. So yeah, in general, because of the softer surfaces, hands down, run a trail race.
All right, so all the things you just said, though, which are softer, there's leaves, there's all these surfaces, it would seem to me that those are the same things that could cause you, a road runner, to go out and injure themselves. Now, obviously, I think physiologically it is better. I mean, what do they say? Concrete's the worst thing, then asphalt, then if you can run on the grass or trail, it's the best. But what about the risk of, gosh, how, like you said, you did a triathlon and you had not been running out there on that. I mean, what about the risk of injury? Is that a real thing, or is that something that you need to train yourself to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's 2 things that happen. Physiologically, the reason it's not just softer. Each footfall is uniquely similar, I like to say. With road running, it is the same footfall over and over and over again. You're using the same part of the same muscles over and over again. With trail running, you incorporate a lot more of those little helper muscles because you're making these little micro corrections to deal with a rock, to lift your foot up a little higher, to skip to the left, to go around a root or a puddle. So you're using far more muscles and systems to actually trail run. So it makes you a better runner because you'll fall enough to the point where you'll naturally shorten your stride, and that's where you want to be. Yeah. With road running, you can get away with a really bad form for a long time. Yeah. Trail running, you can't. If you really stride out with a big heel strike and you land on a route, the trail's going to tell you about that. Yeah. So it makes you a little more biomechanically efficient, which will help the road running as well. Yeah. But I have not seen. There are fewer groups as a whole that are injured more than road runners.
Yeah.
I mean, so I definitely don't think the injury rate is higher.
Yeah.
If you mix it in with your road running, I would think that would be a great way to help prevent some injury. As long as it's like anything, as long as the first couple times you go out, you don't, if your 5K pace is 8 minutes a mile, don't try to run 8 minutes a mile down the trail. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
So slow down, and I don't think it's more dangerous than road running.
Yeah. Any other major differences between the two before we kind of get into some of the technicalities of?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always like to tell people is nature doesn't have a limit on inclines. Yeah, roads do. Mm-hmm. So you will face some hills that you may be using your hands to get up. And same thing going down, and there's no gentle entry into a hill. It's, you maybe run around on a flat surface and all of a sudden there's this 60% incline you have to go up. It's just, that's how nature works. Mm-hmm. So that, and you're going to get dirty. Yeah. You're going to come back with dirty shoes and dirty ankles, but it's for me, it's a return to being a kid. We used to go down to the creek and run through the creek and search for crayfish and run through the woods. And this is a return to that for me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I think that is something that road running has become very, very sanitized, for lack of a better term. I mean, you've got your exact, and like you said, you go out and you run. I'm going to go run 5 miles today. It's going to be at this pace. This is the nutrition I'm going to take in. Here's the course I'm going to be on. Here's the expectations. That's a good example you gave. I can remember as a kid just going out in the woods, and you really don't know exactly what's going to come, but you may be down in a gully, you may be on a creek bank, you may be all of those things. So that's interesting that you bring that up. That kind of brings back memories of childhood,
jumping creeks.
Yeah, jumping creeks, and
not quite making it.
Yeah. Not quite making it.
Well, there's a little bit of that in trail running.
Then you're dirty and wet.
So distances and those kind of things, are those? I know there are trails that are around, but I mean when you start trail running, I mean, do you just? I guess the trails, is there any kind of uniformity in a trail is roughly this long, or is it?
Most
maybe that's a stupid question. I don't know.
Well, most trail systems nowadays have a map.
Yeah.
So you'll know generally how far you're going to go if you kind of map something out. One of the problems is GPS nowadays. We've kind of used it as a crutch. Yeah. And when you're deep down in the woods, your GPS signal may get lost and it may go in and out. And if it's going in and out, all it can really do is remember the last point it saw you and the next point it saw you and draw a straight line. Yeah. If you've done a bunch of switchbacks in the middle, it's still going to draw a straight line. So I know at Croft, most of the time, I've looked at, some people have kind of wheel measured this thing on bicycles. So I know what the distance is of a lot of the trails at Croft, and I'm a good 10% short every time I run. So if I run 20 miles, I've probably gone 22. Yeah. And that's a good rule of thumb for anything. You're probably going to be short by a decent amount, just because of that in and out and the subtle, no road goes like this, really tight turns, right. Whereas trails do that all the time.
And I think one of the fears for runners is the only trail running that you really see and it gets much exposure is the really, like, they may turn on Netflix or Prime Video and the Barkley Marathon. I mean, there are these. And because I mean, really, who wants to watch an easy trail run? I mean, they want to watch this crazy stuff.
Barkley's is barely a trail run.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you would call it, what they do, but are there? Gosh, when people start road running, we had a lady that was just on the pocket that's doing Couch to 5K, and she's gonna come join the walking group that you lead, Laura. Okay. But there's kind of this entry into it. As people begin, I mean, obviously, they need to be doing, like y'all are very experienced. You're doing a seminar on what do you need, how do you do those things. So when people are dipping their toes in the trail running world, what do they need to do? What do they need to do to be able to jump into that?
Find a group. That is the quickest way. Greenville has Upstate Ultras. That's a great group for the trails in and around, so Paris Mountain and trails out towards Greenville. We started a Facebook group, Spartanburg Area Trail Running, that kind of went a little radio silence when COVID hit, but it's still active. Just post some questions. Trail runners are very welcoming people. The community is amazing, and they love to share knowledge. So that's the best way to do it, is to just sort of ask questions. And hey, what's this trail system like? And what's this? I'm a beginner. Where should I go run? And we're probably going to say, go start out the Cottonwood Trail. It gets you exposed to a trail. It's impossible to get lost. It's easy. You're going to see plenty of people out there that if you have a problem, people can help you, and maybe, maybe not go out to the trails around Mitchell yet. Yeah.
Hey, and I think those are real fears people have.
Absolutely.
Am I going to get lost? And you say a phrase like trail systems. I was like, holy cow, there's a system of these trails. I mean, what if I get out there and what if I get in this never-ending loop and they make a movie about me? I mean, those are things that scare people that live in the sanitized running, road running world.
Yeah, but it's kind of like you go to the zoo. The zoo has a paved trail system. You walk into the zoo and you get a map. You don't get lost in the zoo. This is the same type of thing, because most trail systems at any state park, any national park, are going to have pictures or maps that you can take along with you. So if you're not going to get lost at the zoo, 9 chances out of 10 you're not going to get lost in a state park or on a trail system nationally, because you've got the maps in front of you. So you said it a little while ago, the fear. You have to set your fear aside of, I'm going to fall. I don't know how to do this. How do I get started? And Wayne said it, talk to people. I didn't, as I said, I hated running, but I so much enjoy being on the trail because it is in nature. You get to see animals, you get to hear the birds, you get to feel the creek when you're running through it, walking through it, whatever. And if you want to get into trail running, for me, it was get out there and start hiking the trails. Walk them before you start running them. Because Wayne's right, the technicalities, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, the differences in the trails and the technicalities of the rocks, the roots, the stumps, the obstacles that you have to go over, it's better to walk them first and get familiar with, okay, how high do I have to lift my leg to not stumble and fall? And that's one of the differences that I see between road running and trail running, is that people don't just pick up their legs, because as Wayne said, the footfall is the same. I only have to lift my foot up off the ground, heck, a quarter of an inch. I'm not going to stumble and fall. But on a trail, you may have to lift your foot up 3 inches, and that puts in more muscular work. So getting out there and talking to people and starting to walk on trails or hike on trails is where I would start.
Yeah, and I'm going to expand on the map thing. So technology today is amazing. So there are a lot of apps out there. Trail Run Project, GAIA, All Trails. Most of your major trail systems and minor trail systems, because it's kind of crowdsourced, so it's locals putting these trails in from runs they've done. You literally download a state. It's on your phone. You don't need a cell signal. All you need is a GPS signal. So you're going to have the trail system on there, and there's going to be a little blue dot that's you. And you can pull out your phone and say, am I on the trail or am I not on the trail? It's the technology right now is, when we were out west, I ran on 20 trails I've never been on before, never worried about getting lost.
Never, yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, maybe we can get that information from you, and we can include it on the show notes, because that is a big thing for. I just don't want to get lost, and as irrational as sometimes that may seem, is like it's a thing. So let's go ahead and segue into some of the technical aspects. When you're out running on the road, really, there may be a bump or a crack in the cement. I mean, that's really what that's the real danger there. So let's talk about the technicalities of running form, for lack of a better term, on a trail as compared to, like you said, the same movement over and over and over on a road.
Yeah, so you're going to come across rocks and roots and puddles and off camber. That's probably one of the biggest things. Is not all trails are flat and nicely crowned like a road. I mean, they're on their sides, and you're to get around one thing, you have to run up on the side of another thing. It's really not that bad. If you let your brain work, it will do it for you.
Yeah.
The main thing I try to drive home at the seminars is stop looking at your feet. You know, people go out and trail run, and the first thing they do is they stare at their feet, and they want to react to whatever is 6 inches in front of their feet. Your brain doesn't work that fast.
That's exactly what I would do if I was going to go out and trail run.
And everybody does it. Yeah. It makes sense. I want to look at what I'm stepping on. If you look, I look 4, 5, sometimes 6 steps ahead, and that's where my focus is. Your brain remembers. It will remember 4, 5, 6 strides, and it will just do what it needs to do. It remembers what obstacles are in those next 10 feet, and it will just do it. That way, you're looking ahead, and your brain is planning its attack of all these obstacles. You don't even know what's happening. So I will take people, the first kind of obstacle we hit is just this little steep little downhill. It's all of 10 feet long. And I tell people, don't think, just run. And everybody just pitter-patters down. Now, if they come to that and they think about it, it's going to be this slow step left and this slow step right. And they're going to, really kind of massage it their way down. Yeah. If you just go, everybody nails it the first time. Yeah. I mean, it's what we were designed to do. And so the brain is really good at it. But, you can trip, you can fall. It does happen. I'd much the worst fall I've ever had is on a concrete curb. I was jumping up from a street to a sidewalk and face planted, and there's just blood everywhere. I mean, so it can happen on the road too, but I'd rather fall on a soft trail than a sidewalk any day.
And I got to imagine that your body starts using parts and muscles and fibers that it's not used to using, that it's meant to use. And I've got to imagine that after a while, you touched on it earlier. I know my daughters run cross country, and one of the things they talk about in the trainers and things talk to them about is do some things with lateral movement and do some different kind of exercises than just the forward running. So I've got to imagine that incorporating, even if you're not going to become a solely trail runner, that it's got to be good to build your strength and everything that goes along with that. Like I said, I mean, because everything's not. I mean, that's got to make you better.
Yeah, you'll hear it all the time where road runners will go out for a trail run. They'll go, "Why do my ankles hurt? Why do my hips hurt?"
Yeah,
because you don't use them.
Hadn't used those muscles.
Yeah. You are constantly making these little corrections left and right, and as little lateral movements that they add up. And
well, and as runners. As road runners, what we end up doing is we become very efficient at a lot of times. I don't want to say most, but a lot of times we become very efficient in bad form, where we've got bad form, but we become very efficient in our own bad form, and we just kind of adapt and adjust to it. I've heard other people say that they go, man, I went out on. I mean, these are like marathon runners. And they go out on a trail and run. They run for an hour on a trail, and the next day they're like, "Man, I can barely get out of bed. I'm so sore. Everything's sore." And I think that goes to that point. So you talk about running through creeks, going up hills. what's the difference? I mean, you come in Hub City Runners and get some running shoes for out on the road. What's the difference in the equipment that you need? I mean, what kind of you're getting wet, and I imagine you're not wading through waist deep water.
Sometimes.
So,
On occasion.
what's needed to be able to go out and not if you're just going to go do it one time, but if you want to start incorporating trail running into your routine, what's needed as far as equipment, wear?
Probably a lot less than you think.
Yeah.
So the shoes are the most important thing because those are things that hit the ground. So with a trail, the two biggest things difference on a trail running shoe between a road running shoe is one, obviously the lugs on the bottom. There's going to be some kind of grip. That's going to help with when you're not landing perfectly flat. If there's a rock, if there's a root, if there's some mud, things like that, those lugs are going to help. And there's 100 different kinds of lugs. Something like a Hoka Speed Goat is a nice middle of the road. It's going to handle 90% of your trails. The other big thing, and this is something people don't really think about, but this is the big thing, even above the lugs, are the rock guards. So the front of the shoe is really hard, and underneath the arch is really hard.
Yeah.
And those are rock guards.
Okay.
Because you're going to kick things every once in a while. And if you kick things in a road shoe, not only are you going to lose your religion, but it's going to hurt.
Mm-hmm. Is that a shank in the bottom? Is that what that is, basically?
It's basically just harder rubber. It's thicker rubber. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing if you step on, you never want your foot to kind of arch over a rock or a root, and this will keep your foot relatively flat if you land wrong on a rock or root. Mm-hmm. So that's the big difference in the shoes. And then the other thing is there's no QTs out there. There's no 7-Elevens. There's no quick stops. So you have to take more with you if you're going for a decently long distance. So you have to take a little more water with you. You probably want to have a little first aid kit just in case, you have a scratch that you want to treat or a blister, and then a water filter, because especially when you go out in the summer, you can run out of water quick because the miles are longer. So you have a little water filter. Mine's a mini Sawyer. It barely weighs anything. It's a bag and a filter. You fill up the bag. You screw on the filter. You can drink it right out of that. Fill your bottle.
So you just get it out of the creek and then
creek, puddle.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It removes viruses, dirt, everything.
Because one of the things that happens, and people don't understand this, when you're out for a road run, you're in the sun, but again, you're not using a lot of extra energy in your left and right movements. You're going forward most of the time. And when you are under a canopy and it's humid, your sweat rate may be twice that what it would be in full sun. Yeah. And people don't realize the amount of work that is on a trail and how much heat is under the canopy. And so, I'm going to go for a 3-mile run. I only need to drink before I go, and I'm going to drink afterwards. They get a mile to a mile and a half halfway through that run and be completely parched and potentially dehydrated because they don't have liquid with them because of the differences in temperature and the humidity. So that's one thing that a lot of people often just dismiss in trail running, because they're used to doing a 5-mile run without any liquid because they don't want to carry anything with them. When you're in a 5-mile trail run or even a 5-mile hike, it's completely different because your speed is not your road speed. Yeah. So you're going to be out there longer. And so you have to prepare for that.
Yeah, that's kind of a self-correcting problem, though. It only happens once.
Yeah, it happens once. well, and I want to follow up on that with what you said when you talk about nutrition, and the differences in pace. Like if you're going out and running a 10-mile, you're going to run 10 miles on the road. It's like I know, and you kind of determine that by is this a tempo run? Is this what that determines what kind of fuel I'm gonna need. and a lot of times, usually it's the fast burning type stuff. When you're on a trail, does your heart rate, and without getting too much in the weeds on this, if you're not running as fast and you're out in the trail, does your heart, and I know this, there's probably not a nailed down one cookie cutter answer for this, but are the nutrition needs different as far as what you're taking in, as far as macros, as far as like, you understand what I'm asking?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think what you have to realize is if your road pace is 8 minutes a mile, your dirt pace might be 10 or 11 minutes a mile. It's the same effort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people mistake a little bit. Oh, if I'm going to run an 11-minute mile, I'm not going to need as much water. Well, this is not an 11-minute road mile. It is an 11-minute trail mile.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be the same type of effort. So you really want to, and this is easy to dial in after your first few trail runs. You really want to think of it as, okay, if I'm going to go out for 5 miles and I think it's going to take me a 12-minute mile, I need to fuel for like if I was running a 9 or 10-minute mile on the road.
Yeah.
That type of thing. But I'm going to be doing it for longer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So you gotta bump up the water a little bit. And most of the time, what I see is people will go out for the first couple trail runs. I'll end up handing them my water because they're out of it 3 miles from the finish. And then next time I see them, they've got a pack full with 2-liter bladder on the back. And I'm like, well, they may not need that much.
Yeah.
Now they've got 9 pounds of food and water in their pack that they're going to try to carry with them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to balance it. And it's pretty intuitive after a while. I mean, you know what you need.
Yeah.
So it's like anything else. There's a learning curve to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the one thing too about trails is you have to know at least a little bit about the trail you're going to go on.
Mm.
In terms of the elevation, Wayne mentioned earlier, if you're going to do a trail run that has a ton of elevation, what goes up must come down, but you need fuel, carbs, whatever to get up those inclines.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't run those inclines because you want to conserve your energy for coming down. So you have to keep that in mind, or at least have some sense of information of what am I going to encounter when going to this trail. That will then play into what you bring with you.
Yeah. Y'all answered that question a whole lot better than I asked it. I wasn't really sure how to, but that answers exactly what I was getting at on that. So, you guys, when you were on before, you talked about your obstacle course background. How did those two things marry at the same time with it, or did trail running come?
For me, trail running came first. I had done cycling, then I got into road running, and then I did a trail run just out of the blue, and like absolutely felt like this is so much better than road running.
Yeah.
Like this is I went on the road to exercise. I went trail running to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
It was totally different, and and this is not a knock on road runners at all, but the personality of the pure road runner versus the pure trail runner is very different.
Yeah.
The trail runner is very much laid back, and it's every run is a party. Whereas a lot of road runners, it's a far more structured. I have to get this many miles in this many minutes, and
this right here.
Exactly. And trail runner, it's like whatever. I mean, there's not a lot of road runs that I know that have beer chugging contests at mile 12 of a 13-mile run.
Yeah.
I know plenty of trail runs that have that.
So, the hydration.
That's right. So, it's a completely different thing. So the trail running I had been doing, and then the obstacle course racing just kind of came about on a fluke, and I really started to enjoy that as well. But
nice. And Laura, for you?
Yeah, I mean, so again, we talked about this before about me being overweight, and when I had met Wayne, that was really when I kicked up I need to start exercising and so on. So my transition went from doing workouts, like aerobic workouts in a gym, to cycling with him, to then running, sometimes with him, most of the times without him, But then, yeah, the trail running and being out there on the trails was completely different. And how we got into obstacle course racing was we were doing a trail run. We had finished it. And the girl that had gotten us into the Spartan races were like, well, you guys do CrossFit and you trail run, so you should do this. And I just looked at her like she had 3 heads. And I'm like, I can't do that. Literally within, I think it was a month, we had done our first obstacle course race. And from then on was hooked. So that's when I took up a more serious look at getting better at trail running. Yeah. Just like runners get better at doing their 5K times, they work on speed work. Well, I started paying a little bit more attention to my footfall, to the trail itself. And as he said, you in races, especially on trails, you don't know what's going to come when you make that turn into whatever. And there were times on the obstacle course races that you were doing a bear crawl to get up the side of the mountain. Mm-hmm. And while trail races aren't necessarily that steep, you do have to be aware of all conditions at all times.
Yeah, it's got to be a physiologically. I mean, it's got to be better on you than outpounding mm-hmm. the pavement.
It is.
So, what else would you say to those beginners that are going to dip their toes into this water and do that? What other encouragement would you give them?
You just got to give it a try. I mean, it really it's a little bit like being a kid again. You know, you just go out, you get to go out and play in the woods, and I think there's an exaggerated fear of attack, whether it be by human or animal. Yeah. Most animals want nothing to do with you. Like she was telling the story, the mm-hmm. absolute most dangerous animal on the trail is someone else's dog. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, because most of the time they don't have them under mm-hmm. control, and you never know what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Bears, unless you're between them and their cubs, they don't want any part of you. Snakes don't want any part of you. Coyotes don't want any part of you.
How about mountain bikers?
Mountain bikers, yeah, they're an animal, and 99% of them are awesome. You know, much like trail runners. There's always that 1% that you'd rather not come across.
Uh-huh. And you bring up mountain bikers because Croft, is mountain biking. It's trail running. It's hiking. It's walking. It's horseback riding. And so you talk about trail etiquette. Mountain biker you see coming up or coming down, it doesn't matter which way. Mm-hmm. Human, get off to the side and let them do their thing. Yeah. Same thing with horses.
Oh, the horses, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the horses.
Everybody yields to horses.
Everybody yields to horses. And so it's a trail etiquette thing. Just like if you're on your bike and you want to pass, you just say, hey, on your left, so somebody knows you're coming. Mm-hmm. Same thing. We kind of mentioned that today, but it's the same.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, the animals get a bad rap. I was talking about that before. It's like, watch out for the snakes.
Yeah. So I think there's an intimidation factor, and this was the whole idea behind these seminars. Right. Let's get out there in a controlled environment. You can see what this is all about. You're gonna go. You're gonna see that it's not that bad, and then it's really up to your own risk tolerance. You know, some people say, I will never go out if I'm not in a group. That's fine. It's really not that. I mean, if anyone's ever been on a road bike around here, that's far more dangerous to me than running on a trail. Mm-hmm. I see the videos all the time of people almost getting clipped. So everything has risk. Everything has danger. The nice thing about trail systems like Croft is it's kind of contained. I mean, it's a big place. I mean, there's like 60 miles of trail out there. Mm-hmm. But you can't, if you have even a general sense of direction, there's a creek here, there's a road here, you stay between those. And if you want to get back, you just put the creek on your left and the road on your right, and you're good to go. So, there's some irrational fears that people just need to get over, because it really is enjoyable. It's really an awesome place to be. I think a lot of people want to be there. And with running, I was saying this today at the seminar, if the land of the waterfalls is an hour from here. Yeah. So if you want to get to a waterfall that's 15 miles away, that might be an all-day hike. If you can throw a little running in there, that becomes a 4 or 5 hour excursion. That's okay. Now we have time to do that. So you can use it. It doesn't just have to be for exercise. You can use it to go see some really cool things.
And some of the things that I was saying to Jill and the group that had decided to do the 50K, the Dark Horse Ultra, or whatever that's coming up, was, like Wayne said, you got to just try it. You got to get out there. I like to run on the trails, but I'm not a runner. And so when I decided that I was going to do my one and only marathon, which then turned into my one and only ultra, I went out there, I trained for it, and I put aside the fear that I had of I couldn't do it. I did put into my head, it's a loop at a time. It's a loop at a time. And as long as I can continue to walk, then I will get that done. And I think a lot of, I'm going to speak for more women in particular, they just get discouraged by people poo-pooing their ideas and saying, well, you'll never be able to do this because this. You'll never be able to do this because of that. And the fact remains, if you can walk, you can do a trail run, you can do an ultra. You have to just keep moving. Know that, your body's going to hurt when it's done. Things are going to feel different because you're not used to using those particular groups of muscles. But in the end, if you can see where you're stepping, you will do just fine. The difference that I had to point out to them was, and Wayne, we've alluded to it, is your time on the road is not going to be your time in a trail run. So forget about going and doing a 5K trail run at an 8-minute per mile pace. Go and enjoy the woods, the sights, the scenery, the sounds. So what if someone passes you? You're going to pass someone else. And those are the joys of being out there. He mentioned earlier about the times in the United States history where we've been under stress as a world. And there is significant scientific and psychological evidence out there that states when you get yourself out into nature, you can almost immediately bring yourself out of a depression. And when you're running on the road, you see some of the depressiveness, shall you say, because you're not getting any better. You're not, and so when you get into the woods, the sounds of nature, the birds, the crickets, the snakes, the bears, the cow. We were out west and
the cows.
A lot of cows just on the mountains with you. And it's such an awe-inspiring sight to feel and see. And that's the difference. When you come out of your house, I can get on the road and I can go run and I can come home. That's comfort. That's just doing the same old thing all the time. But when you want to explore new places, you're going to be on trail to mostly do that. And whether you're hiking it, running it, doing a mixture of both, you're going to come out feeling so much better. Not just having done something different physically, but mentally better.
Yeah, well, you're alive. And I got to imagine the trails, even if you run them 15 times, they're different every time you go to the same one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, you go do your run, whatever your 5-mile route is around here, it's the same. I mean, you can almost
pretty much
the routes I run, I could almost run them with my eyes closed and like know the steps. And I think there's a lot of credence in what you said about the mental health, especially it's, man, I mean, just a nightmare we've been living for so many reasons, and I think it's a good way to just get away from all the noise of just everything that's happening. So let's talk about these seminars. Are there any more of the seminars coming?
I don't have any planned, but I also don't have a terribly full schedule. So if there is a time, I've been doing them Sunday afternoons. If there's a time we can get a group of people together during the week or whatever, I'm happy to do them. It takes about 2 hours.
What's that page again? And we'll put this in the notes. But what's the Facebook page again for the group?
The Spartanburg Area Trail Running.
Okay, Spartanburg Area Trail Running. And I've got to imagine, no matter where you're listening, that there will be some kind of a trail running group wherever you are in that. And I know that I would feel a whole lot better, if I was going to go and jump into the trail running, to have some people like the Siglers to kind of hold your hand, give you the tips of getting out there, because I would imagine after you do it once, then a lot of those fears you're gonna kind of realize that it's probably weren't.
What was I worried about?
Yeah, it's like being afraid of using an animal, like being afraid of an opossum.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's like, no, they're and this is interesting. No charge for this one, but opossum, they actually don't play dead.
Mm-hmm.
They're so scared that they faint.
Right.
Yeah, they faint, but they are so good to have around. My grandfather told me, he said keep them around. He said all the bad stuff they get rid of. So just keep them around. Said, and they actually they're like those little fainting goats that you see on YouTube that but yeah, I mean we've got to put those fears away and get out. And sometimes you just need to go live. And I love running out on the road. I mean, it kind of clears my head at times, but I think adding some variety in would be something that might be worth taking a little gander at. And how you might be doing are you going to do the ultra with them?
I am not.
You're not going to do it.
They were trying to talk me into it.
Trying to talk you into it.
I've done my races this year. I think it's Jill wanted to turn to do some racing. So
yeah, but so yeah, man. Well, thank you guys for coming on again and talking to us. And make sure, and Hal will put everything in the show notes, and we'll include everything on the Facebook pages and ways that you can get connected to our local trail running group. And we just encourage you, hey, try something new. You may get out there and you may not like it, but I bet if you do go out with especially just the environment, I think it's going to be something that you really, really enjoy. Y'all want to add anything else?
No, I think you said it. You got to get out there. Once you get out there, I think you really enjoy it.
Yeah. So, Siglers, we appreciate you coming on again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the third podcast that they've done. So, you guys just know how to do too much stuff, I guess. Right. And
well, it's great to have them willing to help folks too.
Yeah. That's it.
Appreciate their
those things are
just
just
to help people.
Yeah, I mean, it's those are things that just anytime there's something unknown, it scares people, and too many times we just stay away from it instead of jumping in. So you guys have been great to share and to help those that are trying to do so much, do better, not only with their physical health but their mental health and just getting out there and living. So. Great podcast. We encourage you to maybe dip your toe in and see if it's something that you'd like to be a part of. So for the Siglers on their third podcast, and Hal Morris, is Kevin Harrison, just reminding you, if you'll do the hard things today, tomorrow will take care of itself.